There are times in certain ways of life a correction comes. Sometimes the correction comes in the stock market. Things are kind of maybe trending one way for a period of time and it corrects itself and go in the opposite direction. And then sometimes, like, I think COVID was a correction for all of us to kind of make some adjustments, do some things differently. But really, the correction is time to make something right, improve, and adjust. And some grown behaviors can stand a correction. And that brings me to the young lady that's behind the Pretty Realistic podcast, Shannon. She did a video based on correction is necessary for growth. And I wanted to invite her into Elliot's Law Firm When Black Men Talk so we could talk about it. Good morning. How are you?
I am wonderful. Thank you for having me, Mark. I appreciate it. Hello to
The
all your lovely listeners. And yeah, I'm happy to be here.
pleasure's all mine. Yeah, it was interesting. As I said to you, we were talking before we started, when I came across your video, my mouth just kind of went open. And basically because a lot of times, realistically, male and females, when we're talking about our own, we tend to sometimes not want to speak honest, hardcore truth. And that's what you were doing based on the sense of correction. In a sense, you were starting out saying that feminine has fucked up the minds of women.
Mm-hmm.
And that statement, you don't hear that often. You really don't hear that often, especially coming from a woman. I love the statement, but I want to understand what's behind it. How is that so?
Well, first we could start out with the fact that we never needed feminism. We didn't need liberation from our men. We needed to stay with our men. We needed to stay with our communities. So when this feminist movement first came out, the whole basis of it was because a bunch of white women were upset that Black men were able to have rights before them when it came to voting. Now, when it came to Black women getting involved in the suffrage movement, it was for something completely different. It was because of the lynchings that were going on. It was basically for our community, but somehow, some way, it got intertwined in the movement to just hate men, or to call out everything that men have done, or call out the ways that women are not able to get certain rights and certain privileges. And at a point in our country, yes, it was necessary. But like, let's be honest, I'm going to be brash. Pussy runs the world. So there's no need for it now. Now we need to get back to structure. We need to get back to the family structure, especially considering that the 60s, the Civil Rights Act, did such a horrible job at keeping our families together. There were ways that they made sure that they removed the men out of the home in order for women to receive benefits. I've seen several documentaries where women were actually okay with raising their children without the men being a part of their lives. And then with the prison industrial complex coming, the crack epidemic, we've had so many things that have been put on our community that have really cracked the foundation that slavery tried to break, but it was unsuccessful because we still had successful families up until the 60s. So I believe that we definitely need to take a look at the feminist movement now, in the modern times, because it's created a generation of promiscuity. It's created a generation where women no longer even want to care for a man, let alone a boy. I've seen videos where women said if they have a boy, that they're going to unalive the boy. So there's this hatred that they have instilled in our women for our Black men. And it's started really when the boy was a young child, and they've had to deal with the same hatred or the same lack of responsibility that the mother had for them, because the mother is the boy's first teacher. So if they have this negative impact from the mom or women in their family, they may grow up and possibly have that same outlook if they're not, around strong men, or if they aren't able to develop their own ways or their own characters and how they deal with relationships. So I definitely believe that the feminist movement had a very, very hard impact on the Black community because it was never for us. We never needed it. And we definitely, and at a time when we did need it, okay, we got it. We don't need the shit right now, though. Right now, we need to focus on the mental health. That's what we need to be focusing on, the mental health crisis, and not ignoring the fact that a lot of our men are being ignored when it comes to mental health, just as much as the women. So if you have this broken foundation, how are we able to have two-parent households? How are we able to have make sure that the children have both the feminine and the masculine aspect when it comes to the parenting if we are hating each other.
I want to ask because it doesn't seem like the strong male is really desirable, wanted, and it's something to where it's fought constantly. Now, I'm a man thinking that and feeling that, but I wanted to get your reaction to it.
Well, that could have a lot to do with, and I'm gonna be honest. I'm not even gonna hold back no punches. I believe that there's been a horrible destiny swap when it comes to women and men, especially in our community, because now you have women who are more masculine than men. You have men who are more feminine than women. So, it starts also with, as I mentioned before, the foundation as a child. If the young boys do not have any masculine figures around them, and they have their very masculine mom who is also toxic in her femininity, meaning she's yelling at him, telling him that he that don't cry, and just talking bad to him, taking him to places where mostly women are at, like barbershops. I mean, not barbershops, but beauty shops. And then on top of all the chemicals that are being put in our food, in our water. And it's so many ways that have shaped the minds of young men, and they've grown up to have that it's like that same effect that they have. And then you have ways of people like Tyler, what is it, Tyler Perry, whatever his name is, the
Mm-hmm.
director. He's created so many movies that show, just the breakdown of how you can't even be a man who is in touch with being masculine but still love his woman. Deliver us, what is I think it's called, the Family That Prays. Perfect example. Here you have a hardworking man who loves his woman, loves his family, who's trying to create a business to take better care of his family. And then you have this masculine, angry black woman who's, feeding into the stereotype as is, who's pretty much shitting on him and cheated on him with someone else. So I think that, like, we've been structured to look at ourselves as being strong black women, and that we don't need men. We have all of these degrees. We have all of these attributes. We're the smartest we're the smartest group of people in the country. So therefore we're smarter than men. It all starts with this feminist shit. Because see, white women, they wanted liberation from their men. We didn't need it. Our men was helping us build institutions, build businesses. Yes, did we have some toxicity when it comes to certain relationships? Absolutely. But we didn't need liberation from our men. And because we took the men out of the home, they don't have no one who is going to look that they can look to, that's going to really influence them to be that strong masculine energy that is necessary to make a strong foundation, and to have a household that is strong as well. So that bleeds down to the boys, and the boys grow up like Tupac said. We're gonna have a race of babies that's gonna hate the ladies that make the babies. That's where we at right now.
Yeah. I get the masculine and the man not being there for the child. And one day we might have to really tackle that too, because brothers, we did a horrible job kind of being pushed out, allowing ourselves to be pushed out of the way, taking advantage of being pushed out, because some of us didn't really want to be there to raise our children. So I'm always trying to give both sides of the coin. But what I really always found interesting is this. If you take a male, let's say a male is raised to be masculine, because you get to a certain point in life, and for the most part decide, I want to step into my feminine way, and I want to basically be masculine and feminine. And I probably want to be more feminine masculine. And I'm not talking about the homosexual aspect. I'm just speaking of male in general. But what I noticed with women that want to take on the masculine part, realistically, it's like a dominant thing they want to create that's not meant for them. And they want to step into it. And what they do, it's like, my mother always used to say this, it's like a monkey see, monkey do type of thing. I see you do it, I want to do it. It's not that I see you do it and stand back objectively and look at it and view it. I see you doing it. It must be good if you're doing it. So when I say that, meaning that, as you spoke, a lot of women basically with the college degrees, they did all that stuff, and that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But why not obtain all that and still stay feminine? Why does that make you move into a masculine role? And that's something that I kind of want to put on the griddle and talk about a little.
Yeah, and I will say this in defense of women. A lot of women don't have a choice in the matter to take on that masculine energy because so many of us have been in survival mode so long that we, like, I for one, I've never really had a man to depend on until recently. With my dad not being in my life, which definitely speaks volumes. When you spoke about how men did a bad job at being a parent, at raising their children, me not having my father in my life, me not really seeing any good role models to show me exactly what healthy masculine energy is, as well as someone who may be possibly tapped into that feminine side, because it's a balance. You should be able to utilize both sides of that energy to better work for you, and to also be able to communicate and understand the other gender. So I think that, like, when it comes to women, we learn how to be that way, either from our parents, our mom, our grandmother, or society. When you realize that, like, you don't have anybody to depend on but yourself. So when a man comes in, you're either going to allow him to soften you up a little bit and actually play the role that you've been playing this entire time, or you're going to also be dominant over him and feel as if you could pretty much be the man and the woman in the relationship, if that makes sense. And I think that a lot of women, they don't know how to, because it's something that they were never taught, and they have girlfriends and homegirls and aunties who are around them and telling them that it's okay for you to be promiscuous. I seen a video the other day where a grandmother was congratulating her granddaughter on sleeping with multiple men. So if you don't have anyone that's telling you you not a man, sis, having multiple bodies under your belt is not going to help you in the long run, especially now with social media. Y'all are recording yourselves being whores. So I don't think that they're being taught properly by the women in their lives to be the feminine women and not take on such a masculine role, because they themselves probably didn't know. And the women nowadays, they don't want to be told nothing. That was the whole point of me making the video, because they don't want to be told shit. They don't want no correction. You got the whole movement and all of that, and you remember the slut walk.
Yeah, we're going to get to the whole movement in a second, but the correction, yeah, why? And that's really it right there. The correction, not wanting to be corrected, and realistically not looking to humble yourself and do anything different,
Yeah.
and stay in that role where everything you do is right. And I'm not saying you didn't tap into that already, but how did that come apart? How does that come to fruition? Basically, where nothing about you is in alignment to be corrected.
Ooh, um, it's, in my opinion, it's all about what you know. I would say discernment. You gotta know at some point that you sleeping with all of these men is not healthy. You gotta know at some point that no matter how many cats that you have, how many dogs that you get, there's nothing that compares to human connection, especially when it's as a woman who is heterosexual. You know you want a man. No matter how much you get on these podcasts and in these videos and say, I don't want no man, I want to be by myself. It's either one or two things. Either you have been hurt so much that you don't know how to heal from that, or you may not be desirable enough, and men may not be coming up to you and you feel some type of way, or you just have been completely so disconnected from reality and realizing that iron sharpens iron. My man tells me this all the time: iron sharpens iron. So you need that connection from men in order for us to keep these cycles continuing. And I don't think a lot of women are ready to accept that, because you have shows like Baddies, you have people like Cardi B and all of these other artists that are, you know, pretty much promoting the whole culture, promoting the single mother culture, promoting that you are independent and pussy runs the world and don't deal with no man if he ain't got this, that, and the other. Meanwhile, they could barely even survive in their own relationships. But women are only listening. They're just listening to the beat. They're not really paying attention to their actions and paying attention to the fact that they themselves are still in that energy that they're teaching you to be in. But you're too blinded by the fact that this is how I want to be. I want to be a bad bitch, that you can't even see that they can't even balance their own relationships. So it comes with the fact of, one, having discernment, two, knowing your intuition, your God-given intuition that we fail to use sometimes, and realizing that you need some type of change in order for you to have meaningful, healthy connections with the opposite sex, and and possibly have a romantic relationship and a long living marriage, and be able to have that structure of your own, that foundation of your own that you may not have had in your house.
Um, it's One Black Man Talk, along with the owner of the podcast, the Pretty Realist podcast, Shannon. I'm Mark Yoleda, and we're taking a video that she put together, a strong video, Corrections Necessary for Growth. It was kind of slanted towards the way the modern day woman is behaving, and feminism was the backdrop. But you spoke inside the video of a rodeo that happened in Houston, Texas. Now, for those of us that didn't get a chance to view this, be there, explain what was going on at this rodeo in Houston, Texas.
Oh, a whole lot of ratchet. It was a lot. It was a lot to take in. It was a lot of young women, young college students, possibly some that just weren't in college. You know, they had their spring break in Houston, Texas, and they just were going crazy. I saw videos where men were celebrating the fact that they slept with women on the first day. They were recording them. I saw women having sex in cars with the windows down, twerking. Twerking. We know that happens a lot, and that's not bad. It's just the fact that, like, it was so much drama, fighting, just ratchet. I ain't gonna lie, hood booger behavior, just hood booger shit all up and down Houston streets. And there was recording everywhere. That's the thing. See, like, I believe that a lot of this behavior possibly it's always been. You know, we remember Luke's Peep Show. We remember what is it, the Freaknik. I think that, like, now it's more of it because of social media, because it's being recorded. So you can see that it's happening more and more. So it was just a bunch of women and men. It wasn't just the women, it was the men too, because y'all was out there sleeping with these women with no protection, which increased the STD rates out there in that one weekend. In one weekend, the STD rates went through the roof. And it wasn't just black women. It was Hispanic women, white women. They were all out there acting crazy, but the spotlight was on black women.
How does the correction start? That's what I'm kind of wondering, because here again we get to the whole movement, but how does the correction start? Because to me, a part of what they're seeing on social media and a part of what's being sold to them is not even real. It's falsehood. It's a falsehood that's being sold, and a lot of us yearn to live a life that we can't live. So when it's projected onto us, we try to live up to it. And it's amazing how, a lot of us are fighting to live a life that's not even real. I always looked at rappers. They come with these lyrics and they'll say anything to tingle the ears, to tingle the mind. And then once they walk out of the studio, they go live a totally different life. But yet you left impressions on young males and young people. This is how you're living. This is what your life is. And they're far from it. Mm-hmm. But they'll sell that garbage to our people. And our people are trying to live up to it. So with that being said, and, I'm not saying they have an obligation. In the past, they're saying, we're not obligated to raise your children. But no, you're not. But you should have obligations to your people to be better.
Yeah.
But so my thought there, where does correction start? How does the correction start to take place?
Um, whew, that's a hell of a question because it goes back to recognizing the destiny swap, It- recognizing when it started, and learning that it was structured for us to be at a place right now to pretty much continuously show that our culture, our people are the problem race of this country. Being able, people like podcasts like this, like mine. We now have the Realist Lounge, that we sit and we talk about issues that are plaguing the Black community, and we come from a place of reintroducing ourselves to each other. We have to, because I don't think that the new generation is well aware of who they really truly are. For most of their lives, especially when you go to college and you go to school, you're indoctrinated with this image of, oh well, my ancestors were slaves, and women did this, women did that, and men did this and men did that. Like, they're indoctrinated literally in school right now. So I think that, like, podcasts like this, conversations like this, correction but not demonizing, is what's really necessary. When I say demonizing, I mean like when people just build a platform talking about niggas. That's all they talk about. And they say it. Niggas, 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 but they don't provide any correction. They don't provide any context. So these conversations are necessary, but they also need to be implemented in our music, in our TV programming, because it's programming them to think that this way of being is okay. Can you name one positive image of Black America right now on TV? Do we still have the Cosbys anymore?
No, there is probably none.
No,
But here's a question for that: if we did, would it be supported?
not anymore, because it's oversaturated with negative imagery that's more entertaining. Like, they're trying to bring shows back like A Different World, and they tried to do the thing with Bel Air. They're trying to bring back those things, but like there's no need to watch them anymore, because for one, they have baddies, like they have all of these what do you call it, reality TV shows that appear to um have more of the attention of the youth. And then when you have parents, that's where the correction starts. The correction starts in the household. When
Hello.
our grandmothers used to tell us to put on slips when we put a dress on. When our grandmother used to tell us to comb our hair and look presentable when we stepped outside, and our moms did the same thing. But we don't have that anymore, because you have parents who are competing with their children. You have parents who are paying attention to social media, who want to be social media stars. And then you have so many unhealed people that are in the community, that are having children themselves. The correction starts when people realize that we need to heal. There needs to be a healing. There needs to also possibly be, in my opinion, there needs to be a overhaul of the programming, of the TV shows, of the music. But because people don't realize that the Destiny Swap took place in the 90s, when it came off of the back of the Satanic Panic, and they realized that the Satanic Panic needs to be pulled out of suburban white neighborhoods, and we need to implement it in the Black neighborhoods to continue on creating degeneracy in the community, creating division, creating lack. They have to see that. And it has to start with the parents, and it has to start with the re-education of our young children and our young people.
Yeah, we spoke a couple of times about the whole movement, and interesting enough, even what went on in Houston, the majority of those people were probably not all they were young, and it was a time in life we all act certain ways at a young point in our life. We did certain things as we started to mature, we left those things behind.
Oh, yeah.
But the reality, to some, or I'll say it to myself, that whole movement ain't all. It's not all young.
Mm-mm.
It's not young, and when you really look at it, that movement is a bunch of old women trying to think the whole movement hangs on to them being young, And as you spoke earlier, it's being taught, it's being said in a certain way. And to me, they need to be exposed.
Oh yeah.
Because reality, that's part of the huge damage right there.
Yeah.
And, I'm of age. I'm never afraid to tell my age. I'm 63 years old. But I remember back in the day when I was younger, stripping was something that you had to go find somewhere. It was basically young girls or young women kind of doing it to put themselves through college. In my opinion, hip hop artists and social media, they have glorified stripping so much to where the modern day women, a lot of them, and don't come with, I said a lot, tend to want to live the stripper's life, have that stripper whole mentality.
Yeah.
And they want to basically bring that into everyday living. And I'm going to, with saying that, I'm going to hit a stat that I found to be really interesting. Roughly 49% of Black women have never been married. Never been. Marriage hasn't been an idea, a thought, which is one of the highest rate among major racial groups. Over 2 out of 3 Black women currently are unmarried. Now, some factors, we could look at and say, okay, the high incarceration rate of Black males, homosexuality. To me, there's a big rate where we lost a lot of brothers to violence, murder. We kill ourselves at a high rate. We don't think about it. When we lose a young Black male, we don't think this part of our generation is being pushed aside. He can't produce kids. He can't increase the number of our population. We don't take time to think about that. We just look at it as a kid that was lost. And there's some other race that goes into the mere fact. In reality, a lot of men don't want to marry that 49% because they're not worthy of being married to.
Yeah.
Based on the way they're living. So when I look at that 40% that's never been married, or the 2 out of 3, there's a lot that goes into it, but that's a high number. And to me, that whole way of living, you sleep with a hoe, you do whatever you're not marrying a hoe. Most brothers are not marrying a hoe. We're not.
Right.
So if that's not happening, what is going on with the Black family? What is going on with us the next 10, 20 years from now? If we're just basically not here producing and adding to our population. And we forget this word minority. We're a minority for a reason because not that many of us here. So if we're killing most of us killing ourselves as men, we spend a half of our life, some of us in jail, incarcerated. What happens to the population of Black people? What happens to our race? We're doing a damn good job of taking ourselves off the face of the earth. So walking around as a hoe and 40, 50 years old, thinking you're doing something, running after young dick, in my opinion, trying to, for the most part, what it comes down to, what are we doing to ourselves as a race of people? And I don't want to hear what they do. I never give a flying fuck what another race do about themselves. I don't. I never do. I don't care. Not that I wish them bad or ill. I always start and care about our people. And you spoke earlier about the civil rights movement. We have done a horrible job since then. I mean, we had some gains, and I'm not saying everything was great back then, but at least we had family that cared about the next generation, that thought about the next generation, that generation is going to be better than what this generation is, preparing them for the future. It seems like now we don't give a damn about the future. And it's sad, a lot of people thinking that if I make it to 25, that's my future. No, it's not. And a lot of times the other races, they're looking to go way beyond what we are. But we're spending too much time basically hoeing our lives away. I'm sorry if I got a little long with it, but to me, when I look at the whole movement, that's what I see.
I agree 100%. And I think that the whole movement, when it comes to the older women, and this is coming from someone who I'm not scared about telling my age. I know they say you shouldn't ask a woman what is age. Look, I say proudly, I'm 43, and I'm grateful to have made it to this age. And I've seen a lot. I've been through a lot. And as someone who has been, young before and, did my thing, I think that women like myself, women in our age range, we're not honest with ourselves, and we're not honest with the young women about the things that we went through, the things that we did. If women who were former hoes when they were younger were honest about the fact that they were former hoes, instead of covering it up by going to church or covering up by getting into this goddess. I'm a goddess. Let me put my waist beads on and put a wrap on my head. Let me make being promiscuous feminine, a divine feminine. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? The female hoteppers, they're not being honest about what comes with that territory of being promiscuous, and how that could have possibly cut them off from possibly being chosen. And they don't talk about what made them transition from being like that. Because you could be, the thing about with our generation is you could be, wasn't nothing cool about being a hoe. You were being shamed if you was a hoe. If you was out there, and I'm telling the truth, Mark, if you was out there in the hood and you was just sleeping with all kinds of boys and they running trains on you, the whole city knew. And you wasn't being chosen. You were being chosen for a train to be ran on you. So you was being shamed. And a lot of those women were able to move to different areas and start all the way over again. I know a couple of them. I'd be like, damn, she got married. Because they're able to move and heal and realize that ain't the way to go. But you got the women who possibly either weren't married or were married or have been in multiple relationships where they have been abused, they've been disrespected, they've been cheated on, and they feel like that, like having a hot girl summer is the way to go. But they're not being honest about that. Like men and we are built differently than men. I can't speak on the next woman, but I can speak on myself. I have a hard time just sleeping with somebody randomly without having any type of connection to them. I have a hard time with allowing someone to enter into my womb without me knowing their full name, without me knowing who they are, without me knowing what kind of person this is. And I can say that now as I'm older, but when I was younger, I just liked the person. So I think that, like, nowadays we got to be honest about the fact that, look, when I was young, I made some mistakes. Okay. I did some things I probably shouldn't have done. And young women, let me tell you something. It's not beneficial. It's not healthy. It's not good for you. Like nowadays, it's to be in a mindset of, what can I do to attract my mate? Because like attracts like. And if you're constantly in this whole mentality as a younger woman, you're gonna attract more hoes in men. And women nowadays are in competition. Older women are in competition with younger women. We're seeing it all day long. They still want to be the baddies. They still want to get BBLs at 55. You seeing baby mamas at 60. They're in competition because this is what they have always probably wanted to do. They may have been grown up they may have grew up in the church. They may have grew up in a strict household. They may have been in a relationship with someone who was very much so strict on them and about what they do. So instead of them getting out of those situations and saying, you know what, I'm going to build myself up to be better. I'm going to build myself up to stand in my feminine energy without having to degrade myself. Then you're going to constantly have the whole cycle continuing on up until they probably leave this earth. You're gonna be a hoe when you 80. So you're gonna pull your depend to the side and still be, you know what I'm saying? Like, at some point you gotta cut it off. And at some point you gotta realize, like, being a bad bitch in my 40s is not okay. Saying I'm a bad bitch in my 40s is not okay. Having a hot girl summer and listening to people like Megan Thee Stallion and Cardi B, and thinking that is the way, is not the way, man. I have to have a stance as an elder in order for me to lead these women into a better position, so that way they could be the wives and the mothers that they deserve to be, that they need to be, that we need them to be.
Yeah. I want to come back to, you said church woman, because I love that part, because you're right. A lot of them basically move into the church. And what the church does for a lot of us is they allow you to come in. Of course, they take your money first. They take your time. But they allow you to come in and act like you lived this way your entire life. Once you walk in and start paying the tithes, it's now you lived, you've been sanctified. You've been living the Holy Ghost your entire life. And you don't want to talk about that. You don't want to share and show the pitfalls of what you have experienced in the past.
Yeah.
And that's where, like, just piggyback on what you're saying. That's real, because if our kids are being told, they're not being shown. And no, that's not the thing to do. So what really a lot of the church women and the church in general do is they start speaking condemnation of the same thing they was doing maybe 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And they act like, now they're saving, forgiven. And I'm not saying they're not, but why not talk about that? Why not reach out to the young girls, young boys as well, and let them know this is not the lifestyle. Forget what you're hearing. Forget the peer pressure that's pushing you to live this way. That's not the choice. That's not where you need to be. And a lot of that in our community does not go on. It's like, hush ups, don't talk about my past. And this is a phrase that Black people have bought. Don't judge me. I'm not judging you. The truth is the truth.
Yeah.
If you was a knucklehead several years ago, you were a knucklehead. Speak about it. That's not being judging. Only God can judge you. Come on, really? If you're going to pull out certain things out of the Bible, pull it all out. The Bible, don't pull none at all, as far as I'm concerned. But that don't judge me stuff, God only can judge me. No, I'm not about that. We're past judging. We should be trying to improve, get better, realistically. Yeah. And if you can help someone along the way, that's why you're here. If you can serve other people, it's a good reason why you're walking and face this earth and breathing. And to me, we lose track of that. I want to go back a little bit to, maybe not, but you spoke of how we used to be a certain time. And to me, it was a time when bougie was the word. Being bougie was the thing. You didn't mind being bougie, sophisticated, different, an independent thinker. You didn't kind of ran with the crowd. And it seemed like now, on both sides of the fence, that it's more of a herd mentality. What the herd is doing is good for me, whether it benefits me or not. I don't want to be outside. This is at any age. It's not necessarily a young age. I don't want to be outside looking in. So if it says to me, I got to do X, Y, Z, I have to do this just to be part of that, I'm going to do it. And I see a lot of herd mentality. I don't see the independent thinking. Because to me, just because you pay your own bills, you buy your car, that don't make you independent. You should be doing that anyway. I mean, realistically in life, you're supposed to do those things. You pay your own bills, good. All right, you get a trophy. But to me, it's the way you live your life. Yeah. The way you live your life and basically not give in to pressures of the world, not buy in. When you see those things that you know are not beneficial, you choose not to be part of it. That's independence to me. Paying a light bill, you're supposed to. Putting food in your mouth, putting expensive clothes in your back, that's your choice. That's not necessarily independence. So to me, that's that thing where we look at it wrong. We're more into, of course, the materialistic thing now. And that's a part of the whole life too, the whole movement. The whole movement is basically, what can I get for basically open my legs? What can I, do, that you spoke with the BBL? I mean, realistically, what can I do to basically that's going to bring me financial greatness? If it means to put this on my body. And I don't know when women start thinking you walk around with a big ass, you're just going to get millions.
I'm going to tell you, as soon as you're done.
You're going to get sex. You might get that. But realistically, why does that equate, to you basically thinking that a financial windfall is going to come into your life? Especially when you've done nothing with your life that merits the financial windfall. And, you see a lot of different things, or I see a lot of different things. And I'm not trying to get them, but let's face it, you run around, have 6, 7, 8 kids, and now you wake up one day and decide you want a man to make X amount of money to be with. Where does that make sense? And realistically, what man basically has worked on himself for the most part and proved himself to get to a certain point is going to back up and say, you know what? None of these kids are mine. None. They're not basically raised well. But I'm going to come in and basically my earnings, I'm going to basically give to you because guess what? You decide now in life, this is what you should have. You didn't think about preparing myself for the future. I deserve this now. Mm-hmm. I deserve you to come in and basically, I'm tired of that. I deserve you to come. I don't have to love you. I don't have to care for you. I just need you to come in and provide that. And if that's not big delusionality, what the hell is? Yeah. Realistically.
Yeah, I agree. I think that and I wanted to touch on the basis of the BBL. It all comes down to the frequency and the imagery that has been fed to us over the last I would say since the 90s. Since the 90s, we've had this fed to us, and no matter how many, and there's been several times throughout that time frame where we've tried to pull away from it, and somehow we get reeled right back in. When I spoke about the Destiny Swap earlier, the Destiny Swap really started in the 90s off the backs of the Satanic Panic, when they utilized the same tactics that was within the Satanic Panic and the backmasking to the music, because we love us some music, right? We
Hmm.
love music. Our frequency rises when it comes to music. So the best way in order to counteract that is they started putting those messagings in our music. They started having our artists talk about gang. That it went from fight the power with Public Enemy to I'm gonna kill this nigga and fuck the police. You know what I mean? It went from respect yourself and what a man to bust nuts on my stomach and in my throat with Lil Kim. You know what I mean? So it has a lot to do with the frequency that we're being fed in our music, in our TVs, in our school systems. We're being fed that nowadays on social media. We're being fed that having a BBL and twerking and having this outrageous amount of makeup and hair on our heads is what's going to get us attention. And attention is the new drug because it's paying people astronomically. You don't even have to have a job nowadays anymore. If you, this is what they're thinking. I don't have to have a regular job. I don't have to have a 9 to 5. I don't need a college degree as long as I got a fat ass and as long as I could twerk and as long as people are going to pay attention to me. So even when it comes to our young men, I don't have to have a college degree. I don't have to have a job because I could sell drugs or I could do hits or I could do scamming. So it's this degeneracy that has been accepted and that has been profitable for those who carry on that energy and who live in that frequency. But I feel like we need to really take a long look and possibly identify where it started, who's responsible, and how can we pull ourselves away from it. Because I don't know about you, Mark, I can't understand for the life of me how is it that we had Tyler Perry in position for so long, but instead of you utilizing your talent or utilizing your space in order to reshape the minds of our community, you used it to create more division, to create more imagery of the strong black woman and the weak black man and the abusiveness. And you know what I mean? You didn't really utilize that effort really well. And then if we look in the music business, we don't have a lot of black CEOs anymore. We don't have a lot of grouping of black people for the structure of a record label. You know what I mean? I was speaking about this the other day, listening to Kanye West, who's one of my favorite artists. And I remember that there was a time when he first came out, you had him and Talib Kweli and Mos Def. They were all together doing things, and then that split up. Then you had Jay-Z and the Rockefeller. Like it's like they're showing us that we can't even work together to build wealth. So they separate people and they put certain people in certain areas to be a part of the deconstruction of the mind of our people. People like Jay-Z, who are put on this pillar of excellence at the top of the pyramid, who we know that he made most of his music talking about the fact that he used to sell crack. He's doing the same thing, but he's doing it as a part of the music industry. So I think that we got to get to the point to where we need to restructure everything. Even when it comes to politics, we probably need to leave both parties alone and formulate our own party. We need to leave the NAACP ass where they stand. Stop funding them. Stop funding the National Black Caucus, because these people, these systems were put in place to make it seem as if we're stronger than we really are. Than we really are. And it's done nothing but create this society or create this culture that we have right now that the great Thomas Sowell calls the black redneck culture. This is what we have right now. So I think that people need to understand that there are systems and things that were put in place in order for us to be looked at the way that we're looked at right now. And it was all done systematically. All of these things were systematically done to us. Now, is this making an excuse for the behavior? It's not. But we have to look at these systems, because once we look at them, we'll realize why we need to pull away from them and why we need to restructure and retrain ourselves again and possibly build our own utopia in some way to move away from the things that's telling us that it's okay to be this way.
Yeah, that's the correction. There lies the correction. I want to get your opinion on one more thing, and this is really kind of facetious of me, but I want to kind of get this because you spoke earlier about makeup and the hair, and what is really, I mean, it's beyond. When I look at the weaves now, for the most part, and wigs and the makeup, and I know we spoke a little earlier about bougie, but there was a time when our woman was classy enough to where they wouldn't come out the house if they weren't correct. They just wouldn't come out the house. And I don't mean correct with all the makeup and everything on, but it's just certain things were done in a sophisticated manner if they was going to walk out the front door. And now when you look at, the bags, I call them bags for the most part. I saw a young girl went into school the other day wearing a bag, and they may not let her stay. But how are you leaving home looking like you're prepared to go to bed? And then, beyond that, when you do come out, you're wearing somebody else's hair. You're basically wearing, hair that's purchased, either a wig or something. And it's like, at what point are you showing us you? Where are you? Can we just use the windshield wiper and see you? Who are you?
Yeah, it's true. I made a video about this as well, because I don't know. I'm like, damn, like, when did we stop giving a damn about what we look like when we leave the house? Now, I'm not gonna sit here and say I'm the baddest, I'm the most prettiest person ever, but my mom, God bless her, never ever would let me leave the house with a scarf on my head. Mama, I didn't grow up seeing that. I never seen my grandmother or my mom or any of my aunties ever leave the house with their hair just all over the place, not combed. They just put a wig on and just leave. And what a lot of women do not realize is that hair that you putting on your head has sigils attached to it. This is what I mean when I say it's all systematic. Like, a lot of these women are spending up to $1,000 to get a wig put on. Just think about that. A wig. Where back in the day, if you had a wig, either you were older or you had some type of cancer, alopecia, some type of disease, and that's why you got that wig on. Now, we'll have our little rotted ponytails and our pin curl ponytails and all of that, but we still knew how to work with our regular hair. We didn't need a whole lot of makeup back then. Now, it's because of the imagery. The imagery is telling you that you need, I don't know who came up with the whole wig and these big ass eyelashes and then these big ass what's it, the baby hairs? I hate that shit. Like, I thought we left that in 2024, but it's still carrying it on. But I think that it has a lot to do with the imagery that they're being fed. And then, like, when it comes to these young people are doing it too, and this is not even just women, bro. It's young boys too. Half these young boys don't even get their haircuts no more. They don't go and get trimmed up. They just have they wild hair, or they think that they could put some locks in their hair and they ain't got to do nothing with it. They could just throw on a hoodie and some dirty jeans. Like, I don't understand when this happened, but I think that it definitely has a lot to do with what they're being fed. And people like you and like myself and other people that I know, we still carry on that legacy that our people got to look our best, because our people was always about dress how you want to be addressed. Even if you want to think about back in the times where they were really lynching our ancestors. Am I the only one that noticed that they always dressed good? They had on suits. The women had on dresses. Everywhere you looked, we looked good. We were the fashionistas of this time, of this country. And now I'm telling you, it's a whole destiny swap. Now everybody look like them videos, them pictures that we used to see of them folks in Walmart.
Yeah.
Everybody look like them.
Do you think in reality we are connected to our ancestors?
Not anymore. I'm going to tell you why. See, the disconnect that we have for our ancestors would start with our land. They've dug up so many of our ancestors, on top of the fact that in church, they tell you that connecting with your ancestors is demonic. That is wrong. They tell us that that's witchcraft, when that is really what used to keep us going to church. We built our churches. If you look at history, we built churches so that way not only will we be able to utilize what we learned from the Bible, but we could still do our own spiritual traditions. When they brought in the 501c, they disconnected that, because now you only could talk about what the government wants you to talk about. You can't talk about the spirituality outside of religion. So you have that aspect. And then the only imagery that they're showing us when it comes to our ancestors is them being enslaved. We never learned about Black Wall Street when we was in school. We never learned that our majority of our ancestors were really scientists, and we've invented so many things that we use every day. I just learned that like last month, like 2 months ago, during Black History Month, that it was a Black man that invented the toilet. So it's just like we're disconnected from our ancestors because it's something that's frowned upon. It's frowned upon to connect with your ancestors. It's frowned upon to talk highly of them or to speak of the great things that they have contributed to society, because it's looked at as, oh well, y'all wasn't number slaves. Y'all from Africa. Y'all came over here, and that's just really what it is. You know, I recall one time seeing. Do you remember the time with Michael Jackson?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know that was the last video that we saw where we actually saw Black people in a royal position? We don't see those things anymore. So a lot of us don't even know who our ancestors are. That's why so many people, and I'm not sure if you're recognizing it, are tracing their lineage, are learning about their ancestry, learning about their land, learning about the things that they have done. And in order for us to better connect with our ancestors, we're going to have to retrain our brains of realizing that everything that they told us was put in place for us to be disconnected from our ancestors, because that is where the power lies. They are our gateway to a reality that we can't see, and we need them. We need to let them know that their sacrifices are not forgotten. And I think that because we have so many freedoms, as we say, we don't realize that it's because of them. It's because of them. We got to get back to that.
Yeah, we do not pay honor to them at all. At all. We really don't. We don't. We basically wake up and don't even think of them. And a lot of things that we should be thanking them for, we're so far from. I want to thank you for stopping by, Shannon. Where can we find your podcast? That's the question.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Can you repeat that? My headset went out.
Sure, no problem. I want to thank you for stopping by and bringing the knowledge you brought forth. Where can we locate and find your podcasts?
Oh, absolutely. So I rebranded, and the podcast is now called The Realist Lounge, where we do panels and we discuss different topics regarding Black America or just America in general. But our main goal is to do what we're trying to do here, which is help out with the correction and rebalance everything, reintroduce ourselves to one another, and not even just with Black America. We need to reintroduce ourselves with white America, because I believe that a lot of them don't understand who they are, that they actually kind of mixed in with us a little bit. You know what I mean? So we have the Realist Lounge. We're live every Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You could catch us live on YouTube as well as in IG and Facebook. And just follow the Realist Lounge on all social media outlets. And yeah, that's what we're doing.
Well, thank you for the provocative conversation. I look forward to maybe one day being up there. I'm looking forward to it.
I would love you to. I would love to have you on. I think that that will be a great conversation, especially when we're going to be talking. I really want to dive into men's mental health. I
Hmm.
think that it's very important that we get that conversation going. So I would love to have you on, and I appreciate you sharing my perspective with your listeners.
You're more than welcome. More than welcome. I look forward to being on. Close this out. Folks, well, thank you for giving us a listen. As always, you know what I love to say. God loves you and I love you too. Take care of yourself. God bless.